Now what happened? I had to kill him!
He's just gone.
Oh, shit!
They're dead, all right? Can I go now?
Just get on with the task.
Welcome to the Dead and Gone Horror Show. This is the show where we talk about the best way to tell a horror story. As always, I'm your host, Dan Strauss, and with me as always is Greg Turner. How you doing?
I'm doing as good as any single dude will be doing a few days before Valentine's Day.
Yeah, I walked into the Walgreens earlier today and it was just roses and balloons as far as the eye could see.
Of course.
It's fucking miserable.
Where's the day for women to do something for guys? Apparently it's Sweetest Day, but no one does anything for Sweetest Day. So
didn't they try to get like a steak and blowjob day off the ground or something?
Yeah, they did.
Or was that just like a Reddit thing?
I think that is an official thing, apparently. I don't know what day
quote
it is.
Unquote. Yeah, they tried to make Valentine's Day nice with saints and stuff. They didn't just call it Chocolate and Cunnilingus Day. But anyway, speaking of Valentine's Day, do we have a romance movie for you?
Oh boy.
So what are we talking about today?
We're talking about the Swedish film called Let the Right One In. This is a Swedish horror / romance film. It came out in 2008. And it also had a remake, an American remake called Let Me In. We'll be discussing that the second part of the show. But this movie was actually originally a novel by John Lindqvist. The whole premise of this story is that there's a 12-year-old boy named Oscar, and he is bullied at school basically every day in between periods and in class, and he seems to be neglected by his mother. And one day he looks out his window and notices he's got some new neighbors moving into the apartment complex he stays at. It's an older man and a girl his age. And he ends up talking to her one night and starts to fall for her, and he soon realizes that she's actually a vampire, not a little girl at all. So there's a string of murders that begin to happen around town, and
and eventually Oscar wises up to the fact that she's the cause of all these murders, but he doesn't give a damn. She's still cool. They like each other, and
basically Oscar has to figure out whether his love for this girl Ellie is deep enough or strong enough to the point where he's going to look past the fact that she's a vampire and a murderer, basically, and possibly not even a girl.
Yeah, and I think we should mention up front, this is going to be a two-part episode. We're just going to cover the movies today, pretend like the book doesn't exist as well as we can, and then we'll do a sort of follow-up bonus episode, probably not as long as this one, where we'll just talk about how the book differs from both of these movies, what things were cut out, what plot lines exist, and probably just a little more analysis about some of the themes that the book has beyond the movies. All right, another disclaimer at the front here. We're going to try to pronounce these as best as possible, but I'm not going to put on a Swedish accent for every little thing, so don't criticize, don't judge. So the director was Thomas Alfredson, Swedish director. As far as I could tell, the only thing I recognized from him was Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, which I haven't seen, but it's kind of been on my radar. The screenplay was actually written by John Lindqvist, same as the novel. They didn't have to bring in another writer for the screenplay, which is pretty cool, so he was very involved with the making of this film. The movie starred Cora Hedebrandt, who played Oscar, Lena Leandersson, who played Ellie, and Per Ragnar, who played Håkan. Bunch of other actors in the movie, but those were the three main ones. Everyone else mostly does support and small roles. Fun fact about Cora and Lena, they actually went through about 1,000 auditions over the course of a year to find the perfect two kids to fill these roles. In the end, they were pretty much perfect in both the director and the writer's eyes, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome. I did not know that at all. That's a pretty extensive casting search.
First thing we start out with is Oscar sitting in his bedroom practicing his comebacks against the bullies, and he looks out his window and sees Ellie and Hawken arrive in their cab to move into his building. In this movie, Hawken is actually unnamed, as far as I know, until the credits. So we're grabbing that name from the credits and also from the book. And we also see a bit of Oscar's character here where he's doing his bully thing. He kind of looks like a bully himself in this very first scene, so I think it might be a little bit of misdirection for the time being.
And the other thing is that this is taking place outside in the snow. Like, this is wintertime. This whole film takes place in a snowy town in Sweden called Blackbird.
He's just sitting around in his tidy whities, talking to the air, telling it to squeal like a pig. That's real creepy to me. This just like scrawny ass kid in his underwear, just in his bedroom talking to himself. I mean, whatever. He's 12. We were all creepy when we were 12, right?
Yeah, I mean, I played Pokemon and...
Oh, you creep.
When all the other boys were playing basketball, I was playing Pokemon, so I guess I was the weirdo.
Yeah, I was playing Magic. Anywho, the next scene we see is when essentially Oscar's getting bullied at school. He's showing off his smarts in class, and then once class is over, the bullies come pick on him because, you can't be smart. And that scene's pretty short. We go back to the apartment complex. We see Hawken go out into the woods to do his first murder. Packs up his little murder kit, heads off, waits for the perfect target, finds this teenage boy. He's got the gas tank in the movie, right? He sticks it over the face and...
Yeah, the halothane.
Yeah, sticks it down the boy's mouth, and that just knocks him right out. He ties him up like a dang pig, slits his throat, and starts collecting all the blood in a funnel into a bucket. But Hawken's a dunce, and he knocks it over when he sees a dog coming, and he runs away with everything except the bucket of blood, which was the most important part, you idiot. One note about this scene, these woods were really bright.
Yeah.
It's kind of a theme throughout this movie, the sort of lighting they used, which was just this coming from all directions light, where it's just like from straight above, there's no real shadows. I'm not sure if they were going for like a moonlight sort of feel. I'd feel naked killing someone out in that sort of lighting out in the woods. It didn't seem like he was obscured at all.
No, and you could also see in the background there were cars driving by with their headlights on and stuff, and they didn't seem very far away either. So I don't know if that was something that was meant to be like Hawken didn't care as much where he was at, or if that was just like a filming decision because like, hey, this is the only forest we can get to right now, so try to ignore the cars driving in the background. I don't know.
It might reflect on like his desperation, like, all right, this is the best I can do. Ellie's hungry. I just gotta do what I can. He doesn't get caught for this murder. He manages to get out of there before anyone sees him. So I guess that's a minor success. Meanwhile, back at the complex, this is where Oscar goes outside and he starts stabbing the tree, and then he hears something behind him, and oh, there's this girl that's been watching me as I make an ass of myself on this tree over here. And Ellie asks him, what the hell you do? And he's like, nothing. What are you doing? And she's like, nothing. Then they talk a little. She just says, I can't be your friend. And Oscar, playing it cool, who said I even wanted to be your friend? As she walks away back to her apartment. So that's their first meeting. We have to talk about the drunkards at the Chinese restaurant, whom I will dub the Chinese restaurant crew, or CRC for short. Trademark.
Good job.
Yeah. There's like 5 or 6 of them. Only 3 of them really have a name, but they all hang out at the Chinese restaurant. They drink beer and smoke cigarettes and live off of welfare because Sweden pays good welfare. So,
oh yeah,
that's their existence. They all, they seem to get along, have a good time, but they're all kind of empty on the inside once they go back home. We don't get too deep into that right now, but we meet Locke, Yoka, Virginia, and the others who don't have names.
I believe this is the scene where, like you said, they're sitting there chatting and they notice Hawken over at the table by himself. I think this was the scene where Hawken's there. He's kind of eating something and reading a newspaper. And
drinking his dang milk.
I forgot who it is. I think it's Locke.
I think it's Locke.
Yeah, Locke. He goes over there and talks to him and tries to invite him over because he recognizes him as a guy that just moved into the apartment complex. And the group is like, they're like, hey, well, invite him over. He might buy us a drink or a round of drinks. So why not? He goes over there to talk to him, and he really doesn't say anything at all until the very end. He's like, I'm in a hurry. And he just gets up and leaves. So
yeah, Hawken's just this weird guy who's been hanging out with a 12-year-old girl for who knows how long. He doesn't know how to interact with people, probably doesn't want to interact with people. The less of an impression he makes on the local population, the better, probably.
So yeah, that's what happens with the Chinese restaurant crew during that scene. And after he leaves, I believe that's when we see Oscar and Ellie meet again.
Yeah, so this is the second night that they've met. Oscar's trying to play it cool again. He's just sitting on the jungle gym. I don't want to say solving a Rubik's Cube, but sort of aimlessly twisting a Rubik's Cube, because this kid thinks you do two sides at once and you got it solved. That's totally the incorrect way to do it. It's layers. You got to do layers. But
exactly.
They give you the instructions right in there, but whatever. He's sitting there. Ellie comes up behind him. We don't know this yet, but, she is a hundreds of years old vampire. She sort of expresses interest in the puzzle because, she's got a lot of time on her hands. Puzzles are sort of her thing. So that's sort of Oscar's way of luring her in, even if he didn't know that it would be so effective. Is this where they talk about how old are you and when's your birthday?
No, that's a little bit later. This is the scene where they're just showing curiosity in each other. I believe this is when he's like, you smell funny. And he's kind of asking her about that. And then she, instead of like really responding to that, she just asks him like, what's he have in his hands? What is that? And he tells her it's a Rubik's Cube. He's like, you don't know what this is? And so that's when he's thinking like, wow, she's really strange. She's my age and she doesn't know what a Rubik's Cube is.
Everyone knows Rubik's Cube.
Yeah. And so like this is the scene where he just hands it to her and tells her she can borrow it until tomorrow and bring it back. And she's like, well, I might not be here tomorrow. And then he's like, well, you can have it till the day after, but that's it.
Yeah, she says, maybe I'm going to fucking leave the country tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, oh, maybe you're just going to be busy tomorrow.
And then after he gives her the cube, he's like, all right, well, I'm going to go now. And she really doesn't say much. She just continues fiddling with the cube. And then as he walks away, that's when she kind of stops the facade and she notices her stomach gurgling and stuff. And she's just, you could tell that she's kind of in pain from hunger. She's having hunger pains because she hasn't had any blood in a while.
So do you think that she went out there specifically to eat him and then he just showed kindness and she couldn't follow through?
I never really thought about that, to be honest. Like the first night you hear, like whenever she shows up, those first few scenes, you don't see her. You just hear like this sort of whoosh noise and then she's there when the camera pans around. And I think if she was gonna go out there to kill him, she definitely wouldn't have made her presence known. She would have just like snuck up on him and jumped on his neck or whatever.
Yeah, then for Oscar, it's like, here's this girl who's not at school, who doesn't know me as this little nerd who gets beat up all the time. And yeah, they've both got this new experience to deal with here. So like you said, he goes back inside. Ellie doubles over in hunger. And then we cut to a short scene where Locke and Yoka are walking out of the Chinese restaurant. They hug, they're best buds. And then Yoka walks down these stairs under an underpass, and there's Ellie waiting for him because she's got to feed. She lures him over, says, help me, I can't get up. He picks her up to carry her to like a doctor or something, and she bites his neck and takes him to the ground, bleeds him dry, and then twists his head around 180 degrees for whatever reason. we actually do see a little bit of remorse here, it looks like, after the relief of having drank his blood sort of washes over her. She slumps down on his back and seems like she's just tired and kind of fed up with doing this.
I think she just doesn't enjoy the fact that she has to drink human blood and attack people. I mean, she's 12.
Yeah.
So she may be used to it at this point, but that doesn't mean that she necessarily enjoys it.
Mm-hmm. And watching this whole scene without her knowledge is Gusta, the cat man, in his apartment across the street. We just see him watching, and he'll get involved a little bit later. Essentially, nothing else happens for now. Fast forward to the next night, and we see Ellie and Oscar out on the playground again. Ellie's had her fill of blood. She doesn't have bags under her eyes anymore. Her lips aren't chapped.
She's had a shower.
Had a shower. Dressed a bit nicer. So yeah, he goes out to meet her. Finds the solved Rubik's Cube, which I think was probably in the morning, and then he brought it to her now. But anyway, he asks her, how the hell did you do this? And she sort of shows him how, and yeah, they're starting to warm up to each other. Yeah. And this is the scene where they talk about ages and birthdays, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah, he starts to ask her about, well, he asks her age, she asks him his age, and they both find out that they're 12. She says that she's 12, more or less, and he's like, well, what do you mean by more or less? And she doesn't really give a response to that. She says, I forgot what she says after that, but she kind of changes the subject, and he asks if he asks Ellie if she even has birthdays. Like, does she even get birthday presents? Like, where are her parents? And she's like, well, my mom died, or I think she says her mom died, or both her parents died, or I believe she just says her mom died, because he still believes that Hawken is her father at this point. So she says her mother died, and he's like, well, you can have my Rubik's Cube. And she's like, no, that's yours. She doesn't want to take that. And so yeah, he finds out her age, and
that she's a little bit weird. Something's off.
She asks him if she smells better because she did have a shower, and he doesn't really respond to that. He's just looking all shy and stuff, and he's more curious, not about that anymore, but more curious about her age and stuff, and where she goes to school at. And when he asks her how did she solve the Rubik's Cube, he hands it to her, and she begins solving it, and we get this scene of Oscar kind of huddled up next to her, and he's just sort of kind of watching her solve the cube, but he's really just looking at her face and kind of almost smelling her hair in a way, and just like really admiring her. And you get that feeling, like that sense that he's really digging her for whatever reason. He just really likes her. So I kind of honestly thought that was a sweet scene. Like, I don't think there is anything creepy about it at all. He's just really taking a liking to her.
Yeah, this is his first time that he's, able to be himself. The first time that someone's accepted him, and wow, it's a girl that's accepting him. Nonetheless, and he's just having a good time for the first time in a long time, probably.
Good old time.
So he's got a little boost of confidence here. The next day he gets an idea, decides he's going to write down Morse code on a couple of pieces of notepaper so that they can talk between the walls, because they live next to each other. So he's doing that at school, but of course the bullies, we get introduced to them a bit more here. Once he's done writing down all the Morse code after class, he goes outside, and they're all waiting there for him. We've got Connie is the ringleader.
You're the ringleader.
And the other two, I forget if they had names. I didn't write them down, but they jump him outside, or sort of surround him as he's trying to walk home. And they just start whipping him with a stick for the hell of it.
Yeah, they tell him to. He's like, "What were you writing on that paper in there?" And he's like, "What? What do you mean?" And he's that paper. Show me what you're writing. And he's like, this is like the first time he says no. He kind of stands up to them, and he's like,
that's that boost of confidence coming through.
It's like, what do you mean no? Hand over the paper. And he doesn't, and so the goon, whatever, Connie, he signals to his friend, and the other bully comes up behind him and grabs him so Oscar can't move, and so he starts whipping him in the legs.
Yeah, Connie's watching the whole time. I think it's the one bully's holding him, the other whips his legs, then they switch, and that guy's about to lose it, and he just swipes him across the face.
Yeah.
And that's rule number 1 about beat people up. You don't leave any marks. So they just skedaddle out of there because they're going to get in trouble now.
He gets whipped hard in the face. It leaves a long trail of blood, big old cut. And, of course, at this point, Oscar's like, well, how am I going to explain this to my mom? I don't want her finding out that there's bullies bullying me.
But then he goes home and he's eating dinner and he seems to have recovered. Like he's making this weird smile face, which I guess is probably just a facade he's putting on for his mom. But he's like, yeah, I just stripped on the playground, cut my face, no big deal.
Yeah, he's just sitting there bobbing his head, eating his dinner like nothing even happened.
Well, yeah, it's another day in the life of Oscar, really. Like, what's a cut compared to the countless wedgies and bruises he's gotten?
True.
But after dinner, I guess part of the reason he was happy was because he knew he was going to see Ellie on the playground again. So they go outside and he shows her the Morse code and teaches her how to do it and everything. And he's all excited getting into this. And she's like, what the fuck happened to your face? And he's just like, just some kids at school. It's no big deal. And she just looks at him like, this is an intense scene. The way she's just laser eye contact the whole time.
Because he tries to change the subject.
Yeah, you see his hands just like sort of drawing circles in the snow. Like, oh, yeah, okay. And she's just like, no, hit them. Hit them hard. Harder than you even dare to hit them. And he's like, but there's so many of them, and what if they hurt me? And then she's just like, I'll help. I can do that.
And he doesn't believe her. He's like, well, you're a girl. Like, what can you do?
Don't even trip, Oscar. I got this, man. And then they hold hands a little bit.
Yeah, but what's weird is that Oscar kind of moves his hand away. I don't really know why. I think
he's embarrassed. Like, having a girl say that she's going to back him up if he needs it. He wants to be cool for this girl, and he feels a little ashamed, I guess. Yeah, and then after that, he's like, all right, that's cool. Let's try out this Morse code thing. They both run back to their own apartments. He jumps in bed. She has to sort of shoo Hawkin out of the room because he's reading a magazine and being such a downer. And yeah, then she sits down, closes the door, and they do their Morse code, and it's real cool.
Yeah, and you get that little scene of right after that when she tells Hawkin to leave so she can use the room. He kind of like looks in there as he's closing the door, and you can hear her tapping. He's like, huh, the hell is she in there doing? Like, you get throughout the film the scenes with him that he's just kind of jealous once he finds out about Oscar and seeing Ellie going outside at night to go hang with him.
Yeah, I think by this point he's already looked out the window down at them and just got that look on his face. He does not approve. So after that scene, we go to the next morning. Oscar goes to his gym teacher, Mr. Avila, wants to sign up for weight training so that he doesn't have to rely on a girl to defend him. Mr. Avila says, yeah, just show up. We'll train you, make you strong. Good attitude, Oscar. And that's pretty much that. Then we're at the next night. Oscar and Ellie go down to the newsstand where he buys a bunch of candy, offers her some, and she's just like, nah, I don't like candy, but for you, I'll do it. She makes a sacrifice just to sort of make him happy because he wasn't too stoked that she wasn't accepting his gift.
He's all bummed out.
Yeah. So she just takes one little piece and then barfs everywhere because she's a vampire and eats only blood.
Mm-hmm.
And he feels bad, and then they hug. It's real nice seeing him, soften up and stop being aloof at her and everything.
This was another one of those scenes that was real sweet to me because of the way Oscar just, he doesn't even say anything. He's just like, holy shit, what did I do to her? And he just leaps up to her and wraps his arms around her real tight. And at that point, she's not really hugging him back. She's just got her arms stiffened, and she's just kind of looking like, wait, what's going on? And then she eventually loosens up.
Worried because now she's like, all right, I need to open up a little bit here. And that's when she asks him, like, or tells him, Oscar, I'm not a girl. And he's just like, whatever. You're talking crazy. I don't care.
Yeah, she's like, do you like me? And he's like, yeah, I like you a lot. But even after telling him that she's not a girl, he's kind of still just like, wait, what? Just kind of confused. Like, why would you say something like that? You're clearly a girl. But, I mean, she's trying to tell him something, and he's really not listening. He's just still probably feeling bad for what happened and just enjoying the embrace that just happened. So
we're getting a really nice progression of the relationship between the two of them. And I think that pretty much wraps up that night. Next thing we know, Oscar's going off to visit his dad, pretty much the only other person in the world that he likes and who likes him back. They just have a generally nice time. I think here I want to mention the score a little bit.
really,
Yeah, it's not like a typical... Throughout the whole movie, it's not a typical horror movie score. It's just like this really nice, gentle... I don't want to say happy or upbeat, but it's just a mildly positive sound when the background music comes in. And this is one of those scenes where it does come in. He's sledding behind his dad's snowmobile. They're sitting in his dad's little cabin, and he like puts on his dad's sweater and sniffs it, and it's all cozy and happy. And yeah, there's just this nice music playing in the background that it feels like a nice, cozy, peaceful time. It's totally separate from his life back in Blackburg.
yeah, I think it also reflects how he feels. Like, he really feels like a little kid again when he goes to visit his father, because I believe in the film his parents are divorced at that point, and he goes to visit his dad. So he just feels like a kid when he goes there. He goes to visit him, and his room is the exact same as how he has it every time he goes there. So there's familiarity there. There's nothing from his other life where he gets bullied and stuff. None of that stuff is at his dad's house. It's just he's got his old childhood books there and everything, and he gets to just hang out with his dad and have fun. So I think that's definitely reflected in the change of tone in the music. So
At the same time this is happening, get a really great dichotomy here. Hawkins out on another kill. Probably been a few days since Ellie's eaten, since she killed Yoka. And so Hawkin, he goes to the gymnasium, because young boys are easier to kill than old men.
oh, is that why?
Yeah, that's all.
I'll believe that for now.
Yeah. He hangs out in the locker room, waits for one of them to show up on his own, and he grabs him, ties him up, upside down again like a pig, so he can slit his throat. But before he can, all the lights go off in the gym because everybody's left. The kids' friends are outside waiting, and it's been a while, so they come back in. They start banging on the window as Hawkins setting up a flashlight to sort of guide himself, and he sees everything falling down around him. There's going to be no escaping this. He's not going to be able to get the kill. He's not going to be able to get the blood back to Ellie. It's just everything's fucked. Before he went out on this kill, before he went to the gym, back at the apartment, he showed Ellie this jar of acid that he had, his sort of kill switch. If anything went wrong, he'll be able to pour it on his face, remove his identity, hopefully kill himself, and everything will be cool. And he says to Ellie before he goes out, just do one thing for me. Don't see that boy again. So this is another part where that jealousy comes through. He doesn't like this relationship that's budding between them. And Ellie, I don't think she really answers verbally. She just puts her hand on his face gently, and he sort of feels her caress, and she walks away.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens. So and then he just goes on, eats his apple, and goes about packing his bag, his little kill kit.
Yeah, it's an interesting scene, just how quiet and how mundane it is. He's chopping this apple, cleaning his knife, packing up the little satchel he's got.
Mm-hmm. Just
he's
another
done
day.
this a million times. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, during the scene, the interaction between him and Ellie, how did that make you feel? Because to me, I couldn't quite figure out whether she actually cares about him. She knows
No.
that he's sort of necessary in a way, so maybe she appreciates him at least for that, but I don't think she actually cares for him.
I got it like she was the boss and she's throwing him a bone. Just, yeah, she doesn't care. She does the absolute minimum that she has to keep him around.
And I think that may have been an instance where she's sort of manipulating him. Like, she's like, well, I know if I just let him feel my hand against his cheek, it'll kind of quiet him down and he'll just go on about his business. So, man, that's kind of messed up.
I want to dive deeper into that after we talk about the remake, because that sheds some more light on this relationship.
Okay.
And of course, the book sheds a lot more light on it, but a completely different sort of light. So we'll dive into that a little bit more later. So yeah, Hawkins about to get caught. So he runs off to the next room around the corner while the kid he's got strung up upside down is screaming for his friends, and they're breaking down the door. He sits down on the ground with his jar of acid, unscrews the lid, and hears them break in. And he's just like, yeah, this is it. This is the end. Let's do it. Pours the acid on his face, starts gasping a little bit, and then cut scene. That's the end of that. So he evidently gets rushed to the hospital, and Ellie goes and visits him there. Listening to the commentary, I think this, if you listen very close to the audio, you can hear the author, Lindquist, saying off screen, "Come on in," to Ellie at the hospital. Or, whatever that is in Swedish. But yeah, he's inviting her into the hospital, and she walks in, goes up to the nurse at reception, tries to find out where Hawken is. But it's like a secure wing, so she just leaves again. The nurse sees that she's walking around barefoot, and that's probably not the best thing for a kid, so she goes out and tries to flag her down, but Ellie's already halfway up the hospital wall.
Yeah, the nurse told her, like, the only information she really gave her was, well, he's on the 7th floor or the 10th floor or whatever it was. So at that point,
Good
Ellie's
enough,
like,
thanks.
Yep, exactly.
So she knocks on Hawkins' window. His face is all fused together. He can't invite her in. So he goes and opens up the window, leans out. She eats him a little bit, and then he jumps out the window and breaks his neck on the pavement below. And we are led to believe that she flies away.
That was a brutal scene when he fell out the window as well. Like, they pulled the Titanic. Like, when that dude in the Titanic hits the propeller and he falls into the water. Man.
Yeah, he doesn't just fall straight down. It's bam on the side of the awning in front of the hospital. So yeah, his neck is busted. Ellie doesn't have to do it manually. It just, yeah, he's done. He ain't going to be coming back up.
Not in the movie.
Not in the movie. She goes over to Oscar's place, knocks on the window. He's mostly asleep, but she's like, say, let me in. Or say, you can come in. He says, you can come in. So she comes in and takes off all her clothes because they're covered in blood, I guess is the logic there. And he comments on it, you're really cold, what the hell? And she's like, don't look at me. He asks her if she wants to go steady, and she's like, Oscar, I'm not a girl. And no. And he's like, oh, well, that's shitty, but fine, okay. She says, well, what happens when you go steady? Anything different? He says, no, not really, because he hasn't hit puberty yet. He doesn't really know. The thing about this scene is it's not sexual. They're in bed together, and she's naked, and he's asking her to go out with him, but they're still kids. It's all about just closeness and just like this asexual love. It's
still innocent to me at least.
Yeah, so he says nothing's different when you go steady. So she's like, all right, let's go steady then. Cool. He wakes up the next morning, sees that she left a note for him. The movie doesn't show us what the note says at this point. We just see sort of a heart and her name at the end of it. But he smiles. It touches him, and he saves it for later. And now we've got another school day. They've got a field trip They go ice skating out on the lake, and it's great old time, and there's Swedish puns about holes in the ice that I don't understand. But we got the little kids off to one side, the big kids off to the other, and Connie and his goons sort of lure Oscar away towards a hole in the ice. But Oscar himself found a stick, which happens to be Hawkins' poking stick for when he was trying to hide a body earlier. Connie's threatening to throw him in the hole in the ice. He's got his goons to back him up, and Oscar's like, if you come at me, I'll hit you. And Connie's like, you're not going to do that, you're a wuss. He approaches him, and he gets whacked in the side of the head, and his ear starts bleeding, and he screams like a little baby. Not going to lie. He was hamming it up a bit.
That's what I call an ear-splitting headache.
Ah.
Yeah, well, at that point, that's when Mr. Avila, he's kind of noticing the group over there, the bullies and Oscar kind of over there. He sees him holding the stick, so he's kind of like, okay, I hope something doesn't escalate. But then right as Oscar hits the bully, Connie, and he starts screaming, then all the other little kids on the ice start screaming because there was this little boy. He's like, I have to go pee, Mr. Avila. And he's like, go pee over there by the tree in the snow. And so the little kids that were over there peeing on the snow, they see something and start screaming. So now Mr. Avila is like, oh, shit, now I got two things to attend to.
Gotta go the little kids first.
Yeah. He runs off over to the little kids to see what's going on. And we see that there's a body there's a body in the ice. There's like a face sticking up. So next scene is when you see some chainsaws cutting into the ice, and the police are there, and ambulance and stuff, and they're removing this huge chunk of ice, and there's a body just hanging from it. That's Yoka.
Oscar doesn't care. That's totally separate to his entire world. He stood up to the bullies. He knows he's going to get chewed out when he goes home, and when he arrives home, he stands outside his apartment for a little while because he can hear his mom on the phone with his dad or someone just yelling. But he smiles to himself a little bit before he opens the door and walks in. Yells at him and says, talk to your father so you can get disciplined. But he goes on the phone and it's just like some, cordial exchange, and his mom sort of huffs off because dad isn't doing the disciplining that he should be.
Of course.
But yeah, that sort of blows over. Oscar gets out of the apartment as soon as he can, meets Ellie again, and they go down to the cool kids hangout in the basement. When they walk into the hangout, it's totally pitch black. Ellie's facing the camera with Oscar behind her, who, could only see the back of her head, can't see her face. Lights come on, and her eyes are like reptilian slits for a second before they sort of turn to regular circular pupils adjusting the light.
I thought that was cool. Some people might miss that. That lets you know, okay, she really is, there is something going on with her.
Yeah, if we didn't notice from the wall climbing, the throat sucking, the flying away.
Yep.
Yeah, it's all out in the open for everyone except fucking Oscar now. Even Gusta knows what's going on. But yeah, they hang out for a while, they put on a record, and it's all just like kind of chill and good. But Oscar, he gets an idea in his head. The worst fucking idea that he could get in this particular situation. He wants to do a blood pact. So he pulls out that sweet knife of his and cuts his palm right across it, opens it up to Ellie, offers it to her. It only hurts for a second. It's cool, man. And she's backing off, and he's trying to reassure her. And then she fucking dives at the floor and licks up all the blood that dripped off his hand and makes an old woman face, or an old man face at him, I guess.
Yeah, that's when, for whatever reason, when she starts to lap up blood or drink blood, I guess she kind of transforms back into how she truly looks, and Oscar catches a glimpse of that, and it scares the shit out of him.
Yeah, rightly so. She scampers off, and Oscar's just left standing there like, what in the shit just happened? Lindquist sort of commented on this scene, like he wasn't sure how to naturally introduce Oscar to the idea that Ellie is a vampire. Like there had been these small hints here and there, but he wanted to like just bust the whole thing wide open.
Like Connie's ear.
Stop making the jokes about Connie's ear.
Little bastard deserves it.
He deserves the busted ear, sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, the author sort of stumbled upon this idea, thought like, yeah, that's sort of something Oscar would do with his knife and his weird personality, he'd want to do a blood pact with this girl he just met. And it sort of worked out perfectly for the plot device that it had to be. So now we see what's going on in the rest of the world again. The Chinese restaurant crew visits Gusta, the cat man, who witnessed the murder of Yoka. They're at his apartment. They're asking him to be a witness, go to the police, say what he saw, that some child killed their friend. But he doesn't want to do that because they'll ask questions, and he's, a shut-in, doesn't want to do that. This is finally a part where we actually see some background characterization of the crew. Gusta as the shut-in. We see Laka and Virginia's relationship. It's sort of, they like each other, but they don't want to show that. They're middle-aged, they're down on their luck, they don't want to commit to anything. It's sort of a tragic relationship that all of them have, but particularly Locke and Virginia. And Locke speaks a bit too freely at this point, says that his best friend died, nobody understands. Virginia, especially, you don't understand. Don't fucking talk to me because you don't even know, you cold woman. And she just walks up and leaves. And everyone's like, way to go, Locke, you're a smooth talker, you.
Mm-hmm.
So he's chasing her down the street and she storms off. And after the previous scene, Ellie sort of just ran away. Her monster side came out and she couldn't be there anymore, had to just cool off somewhere. Ran off to a park, climbed up a tree, and, well, that's the tree Virginia walked under. Might as well have a snack. So she jumps down on Virginia's back, drinks a bit of her, but then Locke comes up and kicks her off, and Ellie has to run away while Locke and the rest of the crew deal with Virginia. They just bring Virginia home and let her go to sleep. And then we cut over to Oscar visiting his dad again. This time around, it's not such a happy occasion as it was the last time. Starts off that way. They're just playing games in the kitchen. But then Oscar's dad's friend shows up, walks over in his sandals and his socks, so evidently he's a nearby neighbor, coming over for a bottle or two or three of nasty-ass Swedish vodka.
Mm-hmm.
And that just fucks everything up for Oscar. He knows what happens when the neighbor comes over and the bottle comes out. His dad stops paying attention to him, like the only adult in the world who actually gives a shit, and he stops giving a shit as soon as this guy and this bottle come over.
Yeah, his dad's just like, Oscar, we've got company. And that's really shitty, to be honest. Like,
I'm your company, motherfucker.
Exactly. This is a day when you have your son over. You're sitting there having a nice game, like a nice fireside game of tic-tac-toe or whatever, and you want to sit there and drink with this dude who just randomly shows up. Doesn't call, nothing. He just, hey, what's going on in here? It's nice and cozy, huh? Yeah, it is. Why don't you go home to your fucking cozy place? Come interrupt my damn tic-tac-toe.
Mom isn't good enough. Dad evidently isn't good enough. And then we see him pull out Ellie's note. He wasn't sure about her. He ran away from her to visit his dad, but now he's like, well, she gets me. And we see that her note is, I guess, a translation of Romeo and Juliet. It says, to flee is life, to linger death. Mm-hmm. If you take that in the context of Ellie, it's obviously the sun is rising, I need to leave or I'm going to die. Very straightforward. Now we see it's more like if Oscar stays here with his dad, he might lose something. The death of his relationship with Ellie, but to flee is this new life. So he flees.
I never looked at it that way. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah, so he hitches a ride home. Just random stranger on the road. His mom's not expecting him, so he goes over to Ellie's once he gets back to the apartment complex. Does a little Morse code on the door and gets let in, and there he is. This is a day or two after Virginia was bitten and went home. She's not doing too well, but Locke goes over to Gusta's again. Just shooting the shit. All his friends are fucked up. Gusta's the only guy he can talk to. And then Virginia shows up because she's getting a bit peckish. But she suddenly gets mauled by like a dozen cats because cats hate vampires.
Mm-hmm.
But Virginia gets attacked, falls down the stairs, and that's when they realize, like, she's fucked up. Something's wrong. We need to take her to the hospital. So they bring her there, and she's all strapped to the bed, and they leave her at the hospital overnight.
The scene that got a laugh out of me was, of course, when she fell down the stairs. I was not expecting to see how it played out. I mean, it was comical in a way. It was almost like they took a dummy and put it on a board with wheels and just rolled it down the fucking stairs with some fake cats attached to it. It was so funny looking. But it only happens for like a split second. And I'm like, wait a minute. I know that was not that fake looking as how I think it looked. But no, it was silly. It was silly looking.
Yeah, cut back to Oscar at Ellie's place. He's looking around it, sees that she's living sort of in squalor. There's no furniture. There's sort of trash everywhere. So he kind of looks around, asks her point blank, "Are you a vampire?" And again, she sort of skirts around the question. "I have to eat blood to survive." I think he might ask how old she really is, and she says, "Well, I'm 12, but I've been 12 for a very long time."
Yeah.
And that's when he sort of discovers that she's got a bunch of weird shit lying around. She's got money, she's got jewelry, she's got this weird egg thing, that egg puzzle sitting on a table.
Yeah, it's like a table full of different puzzles.
Yeah.
They look like they date back to a long time ago as well. As he takes a few steps forward to go down the hallway into her living room, she kind of backs up and closes his glass door and separates the two of them. And that's when he starts to ask her questions. Like, I couldn't quite tell whether there was any symbolism with that. I don't know why she chose to close the door on him and just stare at him.
They had that sort of breakup kind of thing. She revealed herself. He freaked out. They both freaked out. And now she's just sort of trying to show him what it's like to be her, to be on the outside a little bit, to not be able to go where he wants, when he wants to.
I think maybe she was also trying to just distance herself in that moment by putting the door between them, just to, because the last time she saw him, she kind of went crazy because of the blood. She maybe didn't want something like that to happen again. She didn't know if he had a pocket knife in his pocket again, about to pull out and slice his thumb.
I'm just going to cut everything, man. How do you like that?
Let me hide behind this door for this fucking crazy dude starts dripping blood everywhere on me.
It's just the worst when someone comes into your house and just bleeds everywhere.
Oh shit, I'm sorry, what's going on? There's just blood pouring out of him. He's like tumbling against the wall and stuff. I can't shut it off.
Happens all the fucking time. I don't know what it is.
He finds out that, well, he kind of gathers that the money she has is, it's kind of like taken illegally. It's not something she earned. It's from the people that she murdered. And he just really doesn't like that. He doesn't want to have anything to do with that. And he's, at this point, he's getting very defiant with Ellie. And he's like, "I'd like to leave now if you'll let me." Because she kind of tries to block the hallway, block him from leaving. And I felt bad for Ellie during the scene. Like, she really wanted him to be there, you could tell. And he's just like, he's not having any of it. He just wants to go and get away from her once again.
You're a dirty person. You don't even have a couch. What the hell?
Wear your shoes, mate. Come on.
Radio? Something? I don't want to put together egg puzzles all night.
Damn.
That egg puzzle doesn't compare to the one in the book.
Oh, hell no. When I saw it in the movie, I'm like, wait a minute. It's got to be something more to it.
It's got like, what, 15 pieces?
Yeah.
In
the
movie?
one, I'm like, I can solve this. But the one in the book they described, I'm like, okay, I'm trying to visualize this, but I'm pretty sure that's impossible for a human to put back together.
Yeah, it turns into dust or something.
Basically, yeah. Fucking nanoparticles and shit. It's a fucking nano puzzle.
Oscar leaves, goes home. Cut to Locke and Virginia at the hospital. Locke is sitting out in the hallway. He's been there all night trying to get some sleep in this uncomfortable ass hallway chair. The orderly or the nurse goes into Virginia's room and she says, "Hey, you want to open the window? That'd be real great. I could use some sunlight right now." Nurse opens the window and Virginia fucking lights up.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
She just
that was
into
her
flames.
intention.
Yeah, for sure. She knew sort of what was happening to her and was not having any of that.
What's cooking, Locke? Oh, you know
That's
me.
3 puns.
It just
I don't
came
know
like in a
how
split
many-
second.
Virginia's cooking. Virginia and her skin. The only person that Locke ever loved.
The one he wanted to sell his stamp collection for and go buy a cottage or 2 cottages even out in the countryside.
Yeah, where it's warm. Where it only gets down to 0 degrees in the winter. But yeah, she fucking explodes for all intents and purposes, and she's done. That's it. But Locke is completely devastated. He's lost his best friend and his only love. Man, he doesn't know what to do now.
Well, he's kind of determined now, though. Like, he lost his best friend, and now he lost Virginia. That's 2 people in his life that he really cared about. And he's like...
He knows the little girl did it, yeah. But now we cut back to the school. Oscar's walking out of the school. You know, he's got that confidence in his step again. Feels like he actually belongs on the playground now. And he witnesses Connie's brother Jimmy arrive, and Jimmy sort of wrestles with his brother and makes fun of him being deaf because his ears all busted out to shit. And they seem like they have a good relationship. I kind of like the way that they develop them in this movie.
Yeah, and in this one it is different than how it played out in the remake. In this one, it does give a sense because Connie is smiling and stuff. He's like, oh, I'm just joking with my older brother. Sure, you need the keys to the house? You're going home? All right, here's the keys. But I think at the same time, it still does kind of show like maybe this is where Jimmy or Connie gets this bully aspect from, because maybe his older brother bullies him a bit at home.
They're cool with each other. That's what really matters for this scene. And also the fact that Oscar can just stand there and watch and kind of laugh a little without really worrying that he's going to get his shit pushed in by this kid once he walks away. After this scene, I think we cut to nighttime. Oscar's mom is out of the house. He's just sitting there eating dinner on his TV tray, watching TV. And here's a knock at the door, and it's Ellie. And Oscar's kind of a dick during this scene.
I was just about to say, he's a fucking asshole. I hated him for this.
Yeah. She just says, can I come in? And he doesn't invite her in. He just does that same noise I do to my cat.
It's horrible because you see how fucking excited she is to see Oscar. Like, her face just lights up when he opens the door. And she's like, hey, hi. And then when he just starts to just fucking be a dick, her expression just totally goes opposite. She just looks so bummed out. She's looking at the ground, doesn't know what to do, just kind of fiddling. And he's sitting there taunting her, like, what if I don't say, what if I don't give you permission to come in? What's going to happen? Is there an invisible wall here? Why can't you just walk in?
And she does. She just walks in and nothing happens. Everything's real great. Until she starts fucking bleeding out of literally everywhere. Eyes, ears, scalp, just totally bloody. And then Oscar's like, oh fuck me, I'm a terrible person. Stop, you can come in, you're invited. And then there's a hug and they make up, you know.
Yeah, he's all like, what was that? Yeah, Oscar's a wiener in that scene,
to say the least. But he realizes the error of his ways pretty quickly, apologizes, and then she sort of gets down to brass tacks, like, all right, I'm weird and different, and let me show you. In the movie, she just sort of grabs him by the face and says, be me for a while. And it's really ambiguous what happens here. There's sort of like a back and forth between their faces. I think we see the old person face on her again for a little bit.
Yes, we do.
They make it a lot more clear in the book. This is like, she does sort of thought transfer here, shows Oscar her memories, where she actually came from, how she became a vampire.
They did want to film that scene with the memories, but it would have involved the castration of a live castration of a pig, and so the director objected to that. He didn't want to do that. Yeah.
They do this thought transfer thing, but Ellie's still covered in blood because she bled out of everywhere. She goes to take a shower, puts on one of Oscar's mom's dresses to replace all her bloody clothes, and that's when Oscar peeps in on her and sees that she's all mutilated down there.
Yeah, it looks like she doesn't have any genitalia. It's just it's like stitched up and kind of smooth. So he's just like, whoa, what the hell? He kind of backs up real quick.
Yeah, so that sort of fills in the blanks from what they cut from the book that, yes, Ellie is a boy. Some shit went down back in the day, and yeah, that's what she looks like now.
And this is when Oscar's mom comes home, I believe. And he's like, oh shit. He grabs Ellie's arm and kind of runs with her to try to hide her somewhere in his bedroom, I think.
Yeah, and she just does her vampire thing, jumps out the window, climbs over to her window. Oscar turns around, looks back, and oh, she's gone. Peeks out the window, and they just sort of laugh at each other. She's looking out her window, he's looking out his, and they're both on the same page now. She's got superpowers, and he's like, shit, my best friend has superpowers. That's I can live with this. I really like that scene, both in this movie and in the remake. Just they were in on this secret that nobody else was, and it was.
It also solidifies the fact that she, like Ellie, really is deep inside a kid. She is really 12, even if she has been 12 for a long time. Because that scene when they kind of run and they're sneaking into his room, and she hops out the window and goes into hers right next door, and they kind of sit there and smile and laugh about it for a second. They're really childish about it in a way. And I don't know, I got the impression that Ellie hasn't really done anything like that in a very long time, or kind of felt that way, gotten to just be a kid.
Next thing we see is early the next morning, he wakes up and sees Ellie's note that says, I like hanging out, I'm sleeping in the bathroom, please don't come in. And he sort of goes up to the bathroom and considers it, but doesn't do it. And sort of at that moment, Locke sort of puts things together. There was that weird guy who just moved in, his windows are all closed. My girlfriend was bitten by someone and burned in the sun. Therefore, that's where I need to go to kill the little girl. So he goes up there. The door to the apartment's unlocked, fortunately for him. And he just sort of pokes around the whole apartment when he sees the same note that Oscar saw, which says, I'm in the bathroom, don't come in. And he's like, that's weird. There's no fucking furniture in this place. This is just really weird. Let's see what's in the bathroom. He goes in there. He sees that the bathtub is just a pile full of blankets, starts peeling them back, and finds this weird little girl sleeping in a pile of blankets in the tub. So of course that's his target, right? But at that moment he pulls back some of the coverings on the window, lets some light in. Oscar's still in the apartment. He was sort of sneaking around at the time. He shouts out like, no, stop! Locke turns around. Ellie wakes up, pounces on him, and starts drinking his blood while Oscar runs away, but only sort of halfway.
Oscar drops the knife, and like you said, he runs back a bit down the hallway and kind of just looks for a second, and then he just turns around. I think he actually puts his hands over his ears so he doesn't hear the guy being killed. Well,
after the kill is done, Ellie comes out and comes up to Oscar, and I forget if they actually exchange any words.
I think she drapes her arms over his shoulders and kind of hugs him, and I don't recall her saying anything at that moment.
But yeah, then they kiss for the first time. She's still covered in blood. It's kind of gross, but you know, they're both kind of gross people, so it works. She does say after the kiss, like, I need to leave now. I just killed a guy and people know him, and I have to go away, otherwise people are going to find me.
Mm-hmm.
We get some more like emotional build-up. The score kicks in again with that nice orchestral, somber but not exactly depressing music, and we get Oscar looking out the window for this nice long close-up shot of his face where he's been crying for a while.
And he's obviously missing her and sad and stuff, but it's just like this little sad montage of him doing things and Ellie not being around.
He gets a phone call at home. The bully who originally cut him across the face, who looked like he was about to cry while he was doing it, calls him up and says, "Hey, we got training today, weight training, at the pool, at the gym, if you want to come down. Mr. Avila hopes you'll be there." And Oscar's like, yeah, I could show up. But then we see this other kid. The other bullies are outside the phone booth. We got Connie's older brother, Jimmy, and they're like, yeah, this kid's really playing it up. They're going to finally get their revenge on Oscar for what he did to Connie. But Oscar doesn't know that. He goes off. He's trying to move on. He goes to the gym. And yeah, he gets there, and suddenly the plan is put in motion. The bullies light a dumpster on fire. They lure the teacher outside. They tell all the kids to get the fuck out. So it's just bullies and Oscar in the pool. No one else. Shit's about to go down.
During that scene when Mr. Avila was there, he was specifically training Oscar at that moment, even though there were other kids in the pool. He was doing this little marching in place deal.
Yeah, aerobics, water aerobics.
Yeah. And he had the little radio next to him to keep the beat. And so he was doing that. And as the other kid came in and told, the bully came in and told Mr. Avila there's a dumpster fire out back, he ran out there, and the bully came in, the one that called Oscar on the phone to begin with, asking if he was going to be there at practice. And then he goes over to distract Oscar, I suppose, and he starts mocking Mr. Avila, doing the little marching in place thing. And so Oscar starts smiling, and they sit there and have this little moment where they just kind of like laugh and haha. And I couldn't tell if
sad.
It is, because the bully, like, he knows what's about to happen, he knows what's coming, but I almost felt like for a second the bully kind of was like,
he likes Oscar, but he's more afraid of Big Brother Jimmy.
Yeah, and the thing is, in the book, that bully used to be Oscar's friend, but he's not anymore. So there was more meaning behind that scene where he hits Oscar in the face with the whip or the tree branch, and there's more meaning in this scene when he's there kind of kicking it with Oscar or whatever in the pool for a second while the bullies kind of show up and start telling everybody to get out. Yeah,
so all that happens. There's a lot of complex interplay between these kids. Jimmy shows up at the pool, sort of moves this kid out of the way, and he takes command, and he doesn't have any sort of complexity to him. He's just a sociopath. He tells Oscar if he can hold his breath for 3 minutes, he'll just nick him a little bit with his switchblade. If he can't hold his breath for 3 minutes, he'll take his fucking eye. Oscar just sort of acquiesces. He doesn't even fight it. He doesn't try to run away. He's just like, okay, sure, whatever.
He just kind of knows he's fucked, honestly.
Yeah. It's 4 against 1 at this point. And he doesn't know how to swim. Like, if I've learned anything in this movie, Oscar, man, he's a fucking dork when he tries to swim.
I couldn't tell if that was supposed to be treading water or doggy paddle or what he was doing, but it didn't look
trying
natural.
To drink the pool.
Yeah. He was like gulping for air and gasping for air or something, but that was weird trying to see him kind of swim in place.
Yeah.
But that scene when Connie's brother Jimmy shows up, that was a very tense scene because it's sort of quiet and Oscar's just sitting there looking at him from the pool, and not only is he underneath the bullies like in that position, but he's also in the water, and
very
there's no
vulnerable.
escape. So the bullies have that upper hand, that position of power, like standing over him and stuff. And Jimmy, he's just like, do you know who I am? And Oscar, he's just kind of like, yeah. And he's just like, good, so you know what's about to happen. That's just like, I got that feeling in my stomach like, oh shit, he is so fucked right now.
But hey, we get a bit of Deus Ex Vampira here. He goes under, he holds his breath for a while. The younger bullies are starting to get worried that Jimmy's just holding him under there. But while he's down there, the camera's just focused on his face while we hear muffled screams from above. Then we see a kid get dragged through the water. Then there's an arm and a head. And then someone reaches down and pulls Oscar up. And oh my gosh, it's Ellie. She made good on her promise and came back and defended him when he needed it.
I really, 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 really like that scene a lot. And I also don't, because kids died. They were bullies, but she fucked them up, man. And What I do like, though, is when Jimmy was holding Oscar underneath the water, the younger bully, he really doesn't want to have anything to do with that. He actually goes, he can't handle it. He goes and sits down on the bleachers and puts his hands in his face and starts to kind of cry a little bit.
Yeah.
He feels bad about what's going on, and that's the one kid that doesn't actually get killed. He's off to the side, and I don't know why, but Ellie chooses not to kill him.
In the commentary, they actually said during the whipping scene with the stick, he actually did cry in real life after that take was over.
Holy crap.
He didn't like doing that shit. So
Yeah.
they kind of joked in the commentary, like, and maybe that's why he survived, because he showed his human side a little bit.
The whole scene was cool when she pulls him out of the water, because it's almost like you have water on your face. From what I remember, like the screen was all blurry, and then you see Oscar open up his eyes, and you see kind of like a blurry silhouette of Ellie, and then he kind of clears his eyes, and you get a clear glimpse of her face, and then camera pans back to Oscar, and he just has this smile that kind of slowly develops on his face, and you see Ellie smiling, and they just have this total understanding right there. She came to protect him and rescue him, and everything's going to be okay now.
And that's pretty much it. Like, Oscar makes his decision right there. Like, no one else matters. Just her. So he packs his shit up, sticks Ellie in a box, and they get on a train and they move on to their happy life together. Where maybe he'll become the next Hawken, who knows.
Another little sweet scene at the end right there. When they're in the train, you hear Ellie tap from inside his luggage, the big old suitcase on there, and then he taps back on the briefcase. And I had to look up what they tapped, because I don't know Morse code, but
What did they tap?
they typed little kiss.
In my fan fiction, Ellie would bite Oscar and they would be vampire friends forever.
I think I like that ending. I don't want him to become a Hawken.
Yeah.
That's too bittersweet. That's like, I don't think that she would necessarily use him, but we don't know how her relationship with Hawken developed in the film, at least. So
Not in
it
this
could have
film.
developed the same way. Yeah, it could have developed the same way as with Oscar, where she seemed to be genuine, but she was really just manipulating him the whole time. So we really don't know. It's ambiguous. It's left open to the viewer's interpretation, and sometimes I really hate that, but I think this time I'm just going to put the happy ending on it for my own sake.
You do share that trait with Lindquist and even the director. I think they were in agreement that they didn't want to leave it up to interpretation. Ellie is a vampire. She became friends with Oscar. They ran away together to be happy.
Yeah.
Period. Full stop.
And
But they both did say that there is this possibility about Hawken, at least, that he started off the same way as Oscar. They didn't comment on Oscar's ultimate fate, but they did say, who knows where Hawken came from in the movie.
yeah.
When we get to the book, we'll see that that possibility is completely closed off. That's not really open in the book.
Definitely.
All right, so that covers the original movie. So now we'll move on to the American remake. You want to give us the details?
Of course. The American remake of Let the Right One In is called Let Me In, and this was released in 2010 by writer John Linkvist. He was the writer of the novel, and he wrote the screenplay for the original film, as well as this remake. And also Matt Reeves helped write Let Me In. The director was also Matt Reeves. Let Me In is the American remake. It takes place in Los Alamos, New Mexico in the year 1983, and the film is basically nearly identical to the original Swedish film, except that the location is different, of course, and the names have been changed to suit an American audience. So instead of Oscar, we've got Owen, and instead of Ellie, we have Abby. They're both still 12 years old. Owen is bullied at school, just like Oscar was. Basically, the older man that shows up with Abby, his name is now the father. I don't believe they ever say it in the movie, but that's what he's called in the credits.
Yeah, he does need... Yeah. Yeah, he's got no name as far as
Yeah.
anyone knows.
So he shows up with Abby. He's tasked with killing people in order to collect blood for her to drink. And once murders start happening around Los Alamos, a police officer goes to investigate, thinking that they're related to a satanic cult. So that's one of the main differences we have here, is that now we've got this investigator going around trying to figure out what's up with all these murders. This film, Let Me In, it stars Cody Smith McPhee as Owen, stars Chloe Grace Moretz as Abby, Richard Jenkins as the father, and my boy Elias, I don't know how the hell to say his name, Elias Koteas? Yeah, he's the policeman. And he's my boy because he played the badass hockey stick wielding Casey Jones from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, part 1 and 3. He's awesome.
Chloe Moritz was in Kick-Ass. She was Carrie in Carrie, which I started that movie, but I was like, I don't care. She's going to be in the Suspiria remake, which I didn't know they were making one.
Me neither.
So, yeah, pretty much the first scene in the movie, it takes place 2 weeks in the future of the next event. We've got a man in an ambulance who's got acid burns all over his face, and he goes to the hospital, and a cop tries to question him, but his face is all fused together with acid, and he can't really get anything out of him. Cop leaves the room, talks to a nurse, and he returns to see that the man jumped out the window. Obviously, seeing the first movie, we know that this is Hawken, or the father, who had just come back from a kill. But yeah, that's the first scene. Man in ambulance, acid, kills himself, involved with the cops. And then we get a nice title card that says 2 weeks earlier. And we've got the same scene from the first movie where Owen's in his bedroom, sees Abby and father arrive. Cut to the school, he gets bullied, real fucking good wedgie, and pisses himself. And then he goes off and buys a knife, which in the original movie Oscar already had before the event started. Then he goes out, meets Abby. This is pretty much the same exchange as the original movie, right?
Yeah, it really was. It was like word for word for the most part as well.
Yeah, he goes out, cuts up the tree. What are you doing here? Nothing. What are you doing here? Nothing.
Except instead
Can't be friends.
Instead of him taunting the tree saying squeal like a pig, because that's what the bullies taunted him with in the original film, he says he's calling the tree a little girl. That's how they taunt him in this film.
Because in America, the worst thing you can be is not a man.
Yeah.
So father goes off and tries to do his kill. It starts off a little differently, where he waits in a young man's car and then grabs him and takes him to the woods. So yeah, this pretty much goes down about the same way. He's in a forest trying to drain the guy, but instead of being discovered by other people walking around, he's a bumblebutt, and he knocks over the bucket of blood. Then we go the next night, and it's the same as before, like pretty much verbatim. Owen and Abby meet up. Owen's doing the Rubik's Cube. Abby's like, what's that? Yada yada. She doubles over in pain with the hunger after Owen leaves. And then she goes off to get some blood. This time around, she just kills a nameless jogger. He was lifting weights to Let's Dance. Now he's jogging to Let's Dance. And he goes through the underpass, same as before. Gets killed by Abby. Then we go to the next night. And this is where Abby starts warming up to Owen a little bit. And again, the conversation's pretty much verbatim from the original movie. How old are you? I'm 12, more or less. I'm 12 years, 8 months, and 9 days. Next day, Owen goes to school, does the Morse code thing, then he gets beat up after school. He gets cut by Johnny this time. I think he doesn't make the goons do the work. Johnny's got a lot more hands-on in the remake here.
Yeah.
So they do the Morse code thing. Owen gets cut by Johnny. The goons just watch on in horror. But Owen meets Abby after school. He makes some excuse to his mom about why he's got a cut on his face. Owen gives the Morse code to Abby. Abby's like, that's cool, but hey, defend yourself. They run back to their own apartments, and this is now the third time where we see Let's Dance. Father's listening to it on the bed, and she shoos him off.
I was starting to think there's some significance to that song, so I went over the lyrics in my head and then looked up the rest online to confirm, and it sort of seems like the lyrics of Let's Dance sort of play into the theme of the relationship between Owen and Abby, because part of the lyrics that I was thinking of is when David Bowie sings, if you say run, I'll run with you. If you say hide, we'll hide. I obviously love you, and I'll do anything for you. So I think maybe that's why they played this so many times, because it's just one of those little things hinting at that relationship between Owen and Abby.
Next scene, Owen goes to school, talks to Mr. Zorik. He's a gym teacher. And Owen says, I'm going to show up for weight training. Mr. Zorik says, yeah, do it. Then Abby and Owen meet up. They go out to the arcade this time instead of the newsstand, because this is America. We got actual entertainment. But then Owen buys some candy. Abby eats the candy to appease Owen, and she pukes again. Owen hugs her, same scene as before. She says, Owen, I'm not a girl, and it's fine anyway. In the original movie, after this scene, we had a visit to Owen's dad, but that's totally cut. Here, we just skip right ahead to the father trying to get more blood for Abby. He waits for someone, a young man in the back seat of his car, but he totally fucks it up. The young man comes in, but his friends join him, and then they see him, and there's a crash, and he pours acid on himself and gets taken to the hospital. We're now caught up to the beginning of the movie. The father gets rushed to the hospital. Abby visits the hospital, talks to the nurse, climbs up the wall to his window. He comes to the window, gets his blood drank, falls out the window, breaks his neck. Same as before. Abby goes to Owen's place. And again, this scene is pretty much verbatim. Owen asks, do you want to go steady? She says, not really. Is anything different? He says no. And she's like, okay, let's go steady. Next scene, they go out to do the ice hockey. So yeah, he gets his stick, and Johnny's threatening to push him in the ice. Owen whacks him. At the same time that happens, the jogger's body is found. The gym teacher rushes over to see the body. And this is where we see the detective again. This time he actually comes around to the jogger's building, which is Owen's building. He walks around door to door questioning people, comes to Owen's place, talks to his mom, asks if she knows anything. And I think he also goes to Ellie's place at this time, right? He knocks on the door, tries to see what's going on there, but she looks out the peephole and doesn't answer.
Yeah, that's correct.
Next scene, we see Johnny's brother. This is a bit earlier than in the first movie, but big difference here is that Jimmy's a dick. Like, him and his brother don't get along. He's like an actual asshole. He's his brother's bully. Yeah, I've been saying Johnny this whole time, haven't I? Replace all my Johnnies with Kennys, and yeah, there you go. Abby and Owen hang out again. They go down to the cool kids hang out down the basement, hang out a little while, play records. And then Owen tries to initiate the blood pact, and he just sort of nicks his thumb instead of his whole palm, like Oscar. Did it all badass.
Yeah.
But that still drives Abby into a frenzy. She licks up the blood off the floor. So yeah, she does the same thing, runs away, climbs up a tree, and waits for new prey.
But this time she's more reckless, because Virginia's dude, her boyfriend or whoever, is like right behind her, like right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, she jumps down on her, sucks her blood, and Larry kicks her off, and she runs away just like before. And after this, Owen doesn't visit his dad, but he does call him this time. Quick conversation, asks him, do you believe in evil? Does evil exist? Because he just saw a fucking monster drinking blood in the basement, so we need some answers. But his dad just goes on about how his mom was putting stupid ideas into Owen's head, and that's just, don't think about that, Owen. Whatever. Stop listening to your mom. She's a bitch.
Yeah, I'll say that scene kind of broke my heart a bit, seeing him cry and hearing his dad tell him that, because my parents divorced when I was 10, so I kind of know how it is to be at one parent's house and kind of hear them talking about the other one not necessarily in a good way either.
Yeah, the parents are definitely more involved with their own shit than they are with their son's shit. Same as before. After Owen interacts with his dad, he goes over to Abby's because fuck adults. And the thing that really sets him off is seeing this weird photo on Abby's table. It's a picture of her. She looks the same, but she's with some kid in glasses in a photo booth.
So he sees that photo on the table. It's like a little strip, like you take at a photo booth or something, and it's her looking the same, and there's a kid, and the kid has the same kind of birthmark on his cheek that the father had. So
yeah, after this, the detective starts putting things together. He goes to the hospital, talks to Virginia's boyfriend, Larry, and learns about the suspicious characters in the apartment building. While he's talking to Larry, the window in Virginia's room is opened and she bursts into flames, same as before, but this time she takes a nurse with her.
Yeah, man.
The nurse got too close. I think Abby's actually at home at that time and she hears on the radio, like, a woman and a nurse just burned to death in some random combustion at the hospital. Shit.
Mm-hmm.
But then she goes to Owen's place that night. Again, same as the original. Owen's being an asshole. What if I don't invite you in? So she walks in and she bleeds out of everywhere. She bleeds. Owen puts on music while she takes a shower. In this movie, he peeks in while she's changing. Instead of actually showing anything, he just sort of looks in and backs away in surprise. So we're left to sort of interpret what it is he saw.
Yep.
If you've read the book, seen the original movie, you can assume that he saw some weird stuff going on between her legs. But if you haven't seen or read that, we can assume that he saw some weird stuff between her legs, but like in the normal young boy sort of way.
Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously, like, that would be his first time seeing a girl nude in person, so he'd be like, oh, whoa, and kind of probably be embarrassed a bit and back away or something.
Yeah, so this movie doesn't really talk about the whole Abby is a boy thing. Like, she says, I'm not a girl, but that could just mean I'm a monster. I'm a vampire. I'm not a girl. And it ends the same way as in the original movie. The mom comes home and Abby jumps out the window. They look at each other and they both laugh about it. And again, I really like this scene. So after Abby escapes out the window, Owen talks to his mom a little bit, then she goes to sleep and he sneaks out again, stays at her place. And yeah, he just falls asleep there. And then this time, instead of Locke figuring things out, the detective sort of puts together the evidence and he shows up at Abby's place.
Owen wakes up and he's kind of walking around, and he is standing in the hallway or something, and that's when you hear the knock from the police officer. And he starts pounding on the door saying, like, open up. And right when he doesn't, that's when the police officer decides to kick in the door.
He busts in and sort of does the same thing Locke does, walks around and takes stock of the place. Did Abby leave a note this time for him to find?
She did. She left a second note. The first one was on the back of a Now and Later wrapper. This one, I don't remember. I thought it was just on a piece of paper.
Yeah, so she left a second note saying, don't come in the bathroom, I'm sleeping here. Detective finds that, so he goes down the hallway towards the bathroom. And again, I want to bring up the score, because this is like straight up horror movie score. It's, tense, and it's like, what's going to happen? Detective's going to find something. Oh shit, here it comes. It's just like, man, no.
I didn't like that. The lead up was just way too jump scary. Like, you're sitting there just preparing for something to happen.
You don't need musical cues. And here it sounds like we should almost be worried for the detective, is what it sounds like. That's sort of what we've been conditioned for when it comes to this sort of music. But yeah, same as before, he goes down to the bathroom, he opens the door, pulls the blankets off the tub, reveals Abby in there, and Owen comes up behind him and says, hey, or stop it. Detective turns around and then Abby jumps on him. Another difference of this scene was that the detective reaches out to Owen to try to get help, and Owen almost reaches towards him, but at the last second the door shuts. So he had that second of regret, thinking he should undo what he did. Do they have a kiss here? I kind of forget how that scene ended.
They did, yeah. It was pretty much the same. She comes out of the bathroom and puts her arms around him and says that she has to go away for a while, and she kisses him just like in the original.
She leaves. I think Owen sees her taxi drive away.
Yeah,
Maybe
he
I'm thinking
does.
the original. Yeah. Okay. And then he decides to go to weight training at the pool. Work off the depression.
Yeah, and it's the bully, not the ringleader, but one of the lesser bullies. He's just standing in the locker room, and he sees that Owen is there and walks past him. He says, hey, whatever, like, what's up? And after Owen walks past, that's when the bully runs back or whatever and lets the other dudes know that, yeah, he's here, so come on out.
I think they light another fire to get the gym teacher out of there.
They do.
And then they make all the other kids leave. They turn off the lights. Owen actually runs. So good for him. He tries to fight back, but the bullies catch up to him because, again, it's 4-on-1. They drag him to the pool. Same as before.
He pulls out his pocket knife from his locker, and they're just like, what are you going to do with that? And that's when they grab him. And that's kind of brutal. They start dragging him along that cement floor, like all the way up to the pool. And he's just screaming and kicking for dear life, saying, stop, no, let go, and all that. And that's how the bully's brother, Jimmy, whatever his name is in this remake, that's how he gets the knife in the first place. He takes it from Owen.
But yeah, so he gets that knife, throws him in the pool, holds your breath for 3 minutes, and you'll be okay. Holds him under, and we get pretty much the same scene as the original. The bullies get all torn up, but I think it's a bit more dynamic camera work. It's not just focused on Owen the entire time. It's underwater the entire time, but it does move around a little.
Yeah, and to me it wasn't as impactful because, I just didn't like how they show Owen come up on his own. I liked it better when he just chose to stay down there, like no matter what, and Ellie pulled him up. But in this remake, he came up on his own and had his face up against the ground, kind of trying to catch his breath, and then that's when he looks up and sees Abby's bloody feet next to his face. Something I didn't really like was that this scene in the pool, the lights were turned off. It was dark. In the original, the lights were on. It was totally well lit, but in this one, you couldn't quite see the carnage, like the after effect. You could kind of make out some bloody, twisted bodies, like on the diving board, but you really couldn't see too much of it all. I was kind of surprised that they did that, because in the original, they showed a lot more as far as the after effect.
When it comes to lighting, that's one of the huge differences between these two movies. Again, it ends the same way. Owen and Abby run away together. They're on a train together. She's in a box. Do they do the Morse code thing?
They do. They show him sitting there with his pile of candy on top of the trunk, eating his now and laters. Yeah. And you hear the little tap from inside the trunk, and then he taps on it again. And I looked up what these taps meant, and it says that it meant XO, so hug and kiss. So with the ending, it seems happier and less bittersweet or open-ended, because the remake makes it seem like Owen didn't have this potentially killer like tendencies being groomed in order to help Abby, because she didn't even ask him to kill for her in this version, while she did in the original. It just feels more like they're just kind of escaping the current situation to go travel somewhere else and be in love together.
This is what I want to get deeper into, is the whole idea of a thrall. Is that he saw that picture on her table of father as a child, and now he's going to be the new one. He's the replacement. It's really clearly hinted at in this movie that she once made a friend with a boy, and that boy grew up to be her servant, and now maybe that's what Owen is.
Comparing sort of the original film to this remake, I think the bullies were just outright more brutal and in his face than they were in the original. And I suppose that's more in line with the novel.
Yeah, Kenny's a fucking asshole.
He is. There's that scene where Oscar's in class writing the Morse code down, and Kenny is sitting there, and he looks over and sees Owen writing Morse code, and he just has this look on his face like he just fucking despises Owen for no reason. Like, look at this fucking asshole over there writing and shit in his book. Like, dude, chill out.
Yeah, we need to do a rating of these movies. How many pints of blood are in a typical human?
I should know this. I worked in the blood bank for 4 years when I was a lab tech.
All right, well, let's just do out of 5. That's a nice round number. Give each movie a number of bags of blood out of 5.
The original to me would be 5. Is it 5 bags of blood? And
right.
This remake did things that I liked, and it did some things that I didn't like, but I think maybe the things I didn't like were more maybe nitpicky stuff towards Chloe Grace, the actress, and the way she played Abby. I liked some of the nods they had towards the novel and things like that. And if you've never seen the original Swedish film and this was like your first introduction to Let the Right One In as like an American viewer, I think it's pretty damn good. I'd give it a 4 out of 5.
Those were the exact numbers I had in mind. I watched the original movie 2.5 times before doing this podcast, and each time I went through it, I just liked it even more. It definitely gets a 5. Everything comes together. The sound, the cinematography, the characters, the writing, it's all excellent. The remake is very good as well. Like you said, take it in a vacuum. Don't listen to the book or the original movie, and it's a fantastic movie. But it's not as fantastic as the original. But it's a bit more safe in the things that it does, so it doesn't quite break up to the 5 out of 5 level. Yeah, I'd definitely give it a 4 out of 5. Next episode will be the book.
I think with the book, we're just going to mainly discuss the many differences it has from both films, as well as like whether we feel the best way to tell this particular horror story is through the medium of literature or film. Well, you all know the drill. You can follow us on Twitter at DG Horror Show, and if you've got any questions, comments, concerns, or you'd just like us to help you name your new pet cat, you can email Dan and I at dghorrorshow@gmail.com.
If we pronounced anything wrong, we don't want to know about it.
Yeah, sorry if we upset any Swedish listeners out there. But if you enjoyed the show, be sure to check out our previous episodes and share our podcast with friends, family, loved ones, and enemies. And until next time, this has been the Dead and Gone Horror Show, the podcast where we talk about the best way to tell a horror story.